Hi guys, Jaideep this side. Of course, some of you might be knowing me, but for most of the wider audience, just giving a little introduction about myself. So I myself have been, part of the Google Summer of Code twice back in the years 2019 and 2020. I have been a GSoC mentor as well, for over, around close to 6 years. I'm right now a GSoC org admin as well at an open source organization called Aussie. So yeah, today we are here on this call to sort of talk about a particular program and in general what open source is. So today I'm here with the students of Polaris School of Technology. So from Polaris, students have cracked Google Summer of Code this year. So in this video, we'll basically talk about their journeys. How did they find the right organization for them? How did they write their proposals? So mostly, at the end of the day, you should find all your answers to the questions you were having so far, related to GSoC and open source in general, and get to know exactly, how to go about things. So yeah, let's open the floor and, we'll just start. Sai, would like you to introduce yourself to the wider audience here, and yeah, just go about your introduction here.
Sure, sir. So I am Sahi Dubey, and I'm a first year student here at Polaris School of Technology. So I'm currently in the third sem, but when I started contributing, I was in my first year. I come from Mumbai, Maharashtra, and currently, as of much, I'm contributing to open source, and on the side is also running like a small project called Elevate. So yeah, there's that.
Nice, nice, quite interesting. Sai, so would like to understand from you, right? What did coding mean to you, right? When did you start? Like, what was that first chunk of motivation for you that you got interested into something like coding, right? So if you can share something from your journey in the past.
Sure. So, coding, it didn't came in as something, that you're supposed to learn or as a matlab you're bound to do it as a subject. It came in. So my father first introduced me to coding. He is also in the software industry. So he taught me this language, matlab not the complete language, but some portion of it in .NET. And that's what interested me. So before that, all that I used my computers for was to either play games or paint or watch movies or that. But then my father taught me, ki, okay, you can also talk to the computer through this. So I was able to, write hi to the computer, and then in a certain way, I only used to write the code, ki what it is supposed to say back, and then it used to say back, hello, Sahi. So I mean, that was I was amused by that. So that was the first spark for coding, that you can talk to computers. So that made me then delve into this thing called as Basic 256, and then those basic, you can call it kiddish language of sorts. So I used to work with them. Then came in this thing called Scratch. So Scratch actually opened up a lot of things to explore for me, matlab specifically in the software end of things. So there the imagination was the limit. So I built like a couple of games in workflows in Square that.
Nice, yeah, super cool. I think a lot of valuable points mentioned by you, Sai. So cool. Thanks, Sai, for joining in, and yeah, we'll catch up soon.
So, thank you.
So hi Saloni, thanks for joining in. So yeah, we'd ideally want like to know a little bit about you, and of course for the wider audience, if you can just introduce yourself.
Okay, hello everyone. So myself Saloni Kumari and I am from Bihar and currently I am pursuing my BTech from Polaris School of Technology and I have cracked GSoC in my first year and currently I am in my third semester.
Nice. सलोनी, थोड़ा सा अपने कोडिंग जर्नी के बारे में बताओ, राइट? लाइक आपको कोडिंग के बारे में कब पता चला, एंड व्हेन डिड यू स्टार्ट कोडिंग, राइट? क्या मोटिवेशन थी? तो थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में बताइए.
Okay, so for me coding was मतलब before college जब मैं college से पहले like in 11th 12th 10th coding for me was nothing but मेरे लिए कुछ भी नहीं था, बस कंप्यूटर के साथ कुछ कर रहे हैं, कुछ लिख रहे हैं. दैट इज ओनली थिंग व्हाट आई अंडरस्टूड कोडिंग इज. बट आफ्टर कमिंग टू कॉलेज आने के बाद मुझे लगा व्हेन आई राइट समथिंग, व्हेन मैंने फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ कोड लिखा था HTML में एंड वो दिख रहा था मुझे किसी ब्राउज़र पे, सो आई फाउंड दैट वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. इट वाज लाइक Yes, this is very interesting to me. Like I am doing in my computer, but it is showing in the browser and in the terminal that yeah I'm doing 2 plus 3. It is showing in the terminal the answer. So ये सब मेरे लिए बहुत नया था, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग था. सो उस टाइम मुझे लगा कि हाँ मुझे ये करना चाहिए और मुझे इसमें इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है. सो दैट वाज द टाइम व्हेन आई चोज या आई लाइक कोडिंग.
नाइस। यार आपको ओपन सोर्स के बारे में इन जनरल कब पता चला कि ओपन सोर्स क्या होता है और कैसे उसमें फिर ओपन सोर्स में घुसे एक तरीके से, लाइक यू कैन शेयर अ लिटिल जर्नी अबाउट दैट।
ओके, तो ओपन सोर्स पहले तो मुझे नहीं पता था कुछ भी कि एग्जैक्टली क्या होता है. बस मैंने कॉलेज आने से पहले सीनियर्स के वीडियो देखे थे दैट दे हैव क्रैक्ड जी सॉक एसओबी देन लिनक्स. तो आई वाज वंडरिंग व्हाट इट इज. सो उसके बाद आफ्टर कमिंग टू कॉलेज, बट मुझे उस टाइम लगा कि हाँ मुझे भी ये करना है. और मैं बेसिकली जी सॉक के लिए ही ज़्यादा थी कि जी सॉक तो करना ही है, क्योंकि ज़्यादा उसी का मैंने सुना था. और कॉलेज आने के बाद मुझे पता लगा कि ओपन सोर्स एक या दो नहीं है, काफी सारे हैं जिसमें हम कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं. तो ओपन सोर्स इज नथिंग बट टू कंट्रीब्यूट इन समवन्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड इट विल मेक अ मीनिंगफुल इम्पैक्ट टू द रियल वर्ल्ड. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप बस कर दो और वो बस रखा हुआ है कहीं पे. वो एक्चुअली दिखेगा आपको कि हाँ आपका काम उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पे हुआ है. तो वो सारी ये है, बेसिकली यही है ओपन सोर्स, टू कंट्रीब्यूट ओपनली.
नाइस, कूल यार। सो टॉकिंग अबाउट योर जीसॉक जर्नी, यार व्हाट वाज द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, कौन सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आपने सिलेक्ट किया था, कैसे सिलेक्ट किया था? आई थिंक काफी लोग बच्चे जो होते हैं वो लोग कंफ्यूज होते हैं अपना ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सिलेक्शन प्रोसेस में। तो यार कैसे सिलेक्ट करें ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और मतलब कैसे पता चले कि यार दिस प्रोजेक्ट इज लुकिंग गुड और लाइक दिस समथिंग व्हिच आई कैन वेयर आई कैन ऐड वैल्यू टू। तो वो प्रोजेक्ट भी कैसे चूज करें, कैसे सिलेक्ट करें, तो इसके बारे में अगर आप थोड़ा बताएं आपके जर्नी से।
तो प्रोजेक्ट चूज करने में मेरा हेल्प मेरे मेंटर ने किया था, सौभिक सर. तो उसमें ना मतलब उन्होंने कहा कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऐसे ही नहीं चूज करना रैंडमली, जो अच्छा दिख रहा है ले लिए. सबसे पहले तो अपना स्किल सेट मैच करना है कि किससे मैच हो रहा है हमारा. और ये जरूरी नहीं है कि सारा जो भी उसमें स्किल्स लिखा हुआ है सब हमें आना चाहिए. अगर हम एक दो या तीन भी जानते हैं तो हम उसके साथ आगे जा सकते हैं, कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं. और ऑल्सो मेक श्योर ये करना होता है कि वहाँ पे जो भी एडमिन्स है, मेंटेनर्स है, कम्युनिटी चैनल जो है वो एक्टिव है. ये नहीं कि हम आज मैसेज कर रहे हैं और रिप्लाई 5 दिन के बाद आ रहा है, तो उसका कोई सेंस नहीं बनता है. और ऑल्सो मेक श्योर कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चूज करो बट वहाँ पे ना वहाँ मतलब क्राउड कम हो ऐसा जगह, ताकि आपके चांसेस बड़े सेलेक्ट होने के. कि जहाँ पे अगर ऑलरेडी बहुत भीड़ आ चुका है, लाइक 50 लोग ऑलरेडी कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं, तो फिर वहाँ पे कोई सेंस नहीं बनता कि ऑब्वियसली हम फर्स्ट ईयर में हैं, तो सम विल बी बेटर देन मी. तो वहाँ पे हम ट्राई करेंगे कि जहाँ पे कम लोग हैं वहाँ पे हम जाएं, ताकि हमारे चांसेस बढ़े. और मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट है कम्युनिकेशन, टू ऑलवेज बी कम्युनिकेट विथ योर मेंटर्स, विथ योर एडमिन्स, विथ योर मेंटेनर्स, ताकि उनको आप रिकॉग्नाइज हो जाओ कि हाँ एक कोई है जो कर रहा है कंट्रीब्यूट और कंसिस्टेंट है. तो दैट रियली मैटर्स.
गॉट इट। यार थोड़ा सा कम्युनिटी के इम्पोर्टेंस के बारे में बताओ कि मतलब व्हाट डू यू थिंक, लेट्स से ये जैसे मेंटेनर्स होते हैं, मेंटर्स होते हैं, इवन आई थिंक अदर कंट्रीब्यूटर्स भी होते हैं जो लोग आपके साथ लेट्स से आर कंट्रीब्यूटिंग इन योर ड्यूरिंग योर जर्नी रादर। तो यार मतलब इस कम्युनिटी का क्या इम्पोर्टेंस है, इसके साथ कैसे डील किया जाए, कैसे इन्वॉल्व हो इस कम्युनिटी के साथ, तो थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में बताएं।
तो मेरे केस में तो कम्युनिकेशन ही बहुत बड़ा पार्ट था रैदर देन पीआर. सो कम्युनिकेशन, अगर आप सारा मीटिंग्स अटेंड कर रहे हैं, कंसिस्टेंट है, कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं, और बाय चांस अगर आप कोई मीटिंग, अगर आपका कम्युनिकेशन अच्छा है तो कोई मीटिंग अगर आप नहीं कर पाए, तो इफ़ यू आर कम्युनिकेटिंग विथ पीयर्स देन यू कैन आस्क हिम दैट व्हाट एग्जैक्टली हैपन इन द मीटिंग. दैट विल हेल्प यू. एंड ऑल्सो कम्युनिकेशन बहुत बड़ा रोल इसलिए है क्योंकि प्रपोजल के टाइम पे आपको फीडबैक चाहिए होगा मेंटेनर्स का, एडमिन्स का। तो उस टाइम पे भी अगर आपका कम्युनिकेशन अच्छा है मतलब मेंटेनर के साथ, तो वो लोग रियली हेल्प करेंगे सब कुछ में। अगर आप मीटिंग एक भी ज्वाइन नहीं कर रहे हैं और आप सीधा हेल्प के लिए चले हैं, तो वो सब उतना सेंस नहीं बनाता है। तो हाँ, मीटिंग मतलब कम्युनिकेशन तो होना ही चाहिए। अगर आप 10 पीआर डाल रहे हैं, क्वालिटी पीआर भी है, बट अगर आपका कोई भी कम्युनिकेशन नहीं है, तो फिर आई डोंट थिंक कि वो उतना मतलब वो उतना सेंस होगा। क्योंकि मेरे केस में कुछ लोग थे जो पीआर भी डाल रहे थे, बट उनका नहीं हुआ, बट मेरा हुआ क्योंकि मैं रेगुलरली कम्युनिकेट कर रही थी। कुछ भी नया हो रहा था तो मैं उस पर बातचीत कर रही थी, तो जिसके कारण से मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरा काफी ज्यादा हेल्प हुआ है।
Got it. And यार आपके मतलब throughout the journey, what was the biggest challenge जो आपको face हुआ, even like let's say it can be before getting accepted into GSoC or after getting accepted as well. तो क्या था वो सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज, क्या कौन सी ऐसी चीज थी जिसमें आप एकदम ब्लॉक्ड हो गए एंड उसको कैसे ओवरकम किया गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, तो उसके बारे में अगर आप बताएं।
ओके, तो मेरी केस में तो सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज था लोकल सेटअप। मतलब हो ही नहीं रहा था, ट्राई कर रहे थे। 1 वीक मेरा लोकल सेटअप करने में ही चला गया, पूरा 1 वीक। बट फिर उसमें धीरे धीरे चीजें होने लगी, क्योंकि अगर हम सीधा ही देख रहे हैं कि हाँ इतने सारे एरर्स आ रहे हैं, नहीं हो रहे हैं हमारे, तो हम उसको चेंज करके लाइक स्मॉलर पार्ट्स में ब्रेक करके पहले जो भी फर्स्ट लाइक एरर है उसको सॉल्व करे, देन नेक्स्ट पे जाए। तो वो काफी हेल्प करता है, नॉट नॉट ओनली फॉर कंपाइलेशन एरर, बट ऑल्सो अगर आप कहीं भी स्टक हो रहे हैं, तो इफ यू ब्रेक डाउन द प्रॉब्लम इनटू स्मॉलर प्रॉब्लम्स, देन दैट विल बी इजियर टू सॉल्व। तो मैंने तो हर केस में मैं यही करती हूँ, लाइक कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम आता है तो उसको पहले छोटे छोटे पार्ट्स में ब्रेक करना एंड देन सॉल्व करना, तो दैट रियली हेल्प मी।
Amazing, amazing. I think pretty, touching stuff right there. Cool. Saloni, thanks for joining in and thanks for all the valuable insights you have shared to us.
थैंक यू सर।
Cool. Welcome, Akshat, on this interview call. Pretty curious and excited to learn more about your journey and what exactly did you do, and which organization did you contribute to. But even going before that, I'd ideally want to know what coding really meant to you in general. When did you start coding? What essentially sparkled you, like sparkled coding for you, to be very specific. So if you can just help me understand a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. I am Akshat Baranwal, and the first line of code that I wrote was after coming to my college. So, yeah, I think after learning about coding and other stuff, the first thing that came to my mind was I like building stuff. Rather than fixing bugs or doing something creative, I like building things which are actually useful. So, that's how I got into my project. So the project that I worked upon in GSoC was related to contributor behavior, which is especially helpful to contributor maintainers. So that's how it went for me.
Got it. So which organization did you talk about? Like which, what was the organization name where you started, like got into GSoC for?
Okay. So I was working with Chaos. It's one of the organization in GSoC.
Okay. And what was the project about? Where you were like what you were working on?
Okay. So what we say is whenever there's a open source repository, new contributors comes and they'll contribute for maybe 1 or 2 times and they'll just leave after that. So there's no way how to know whether on what basis they are actually lacking, they're facing problems. So that's where my project comes in. Since I have created visualization on their behaviors, where they have dropped off, where they might be facing problems as per the data that I pulled you from GitHub. So it helps the community maintainers, the open source repository maintainers to know what improvements they can do and what are the other things they should do to improve their organization even more.
Got it. That sounds pretty exciting, yeah. But the one thing I would like to understand is like like I would like to take you to the time where you were probably thinking about applying for, let's say, chaos, right? You were thinking to apply or probably submit a proposal here. what made you feel that this is probably good organization for you, right? Probably there are hundreds and whatever 200s of organizations who are there on the GSoC portal, right? And everyone who comes on that organization ka archive page, people are confused which organization to look for or which projects to go for, right? So what did what rather made it happen for this particular organization to be in your suitability list where you can probably submit a proposal for? So what made it click for this particular organization, this particular project for you?
Uh, there were a couple of reasons, I would say. The first thing was, as I said previously, I like building stuff rather than solving errors or fixing bugs. So the project was something which I had to build from scratch. So it actually incites me a lot that I'm building from scratch. And again, I was working with Python, and there was one more library that I had to learn, which was Plotly. So learning new things, learning new tech is also very exciting. And the third reason I would say is the mentors were highly, very, very responsive in this particular organization. We were having weekly meetings, and especially the mentors were highly, very highly responsive. And because of my previous organization that I chose previously, there the mentors didn't used to respond very easily or very quickly. So all those things gave me a boost that yes, this is the organization I really want to work with, because people are very friendly. They are ready to solve my problems. And even one of the times when I was facing problem in setting up the organization locally, the mentors sat with me for around 2 hours and helped me to set up the organization. So I think these kind of acts that people do will actually help others to contribute in a particular organization.
Nice, nice. That sounds, pretty, motivating to be, the least. So nice. Would also want to know, like, I think this is also a question in general for a lot of, students, to be very specific, people who, are contributing to open source. Like, what should be, how do you, go about, solving your first issue, right? I'm sure a lot of, these students are, seeing a lot of issues on different GitHub repositories. How do you pick your first issue in, let's say, a very big project, like the project where you were working on, and I'm sure a lot of other people are seeing a lot of projects. So how do you pick that first issue? How do you go about things thereafter, right? What is the let's say a contribution rhythm which you should keep? How many PRs should you raise frequently? Like any kind of information, or what did you follow, rather, in your journey, to be very specific?
So the very first thing that I did was I searched for tags. In issues, there are tags. So I searched for good first issues, and they are the issues which are very easy to solve. I mean, they are quite easy to solve rather than the other issues. So I think these are the issues that anyone should opt for first. And again, I would say the number of PR doesn't matter. The only thing that will matter uh, is the way you are solving. For example, if one of the PR is highly, highly needed, it is solving a major issue rather than getting a number of PRs, maybe 10 or 15, if you are doing only two PRs which are very meaningful. So I would say meaningful PRs counts more than the number of PRs. Each and every meaningful contribution will help us to learn more things, to go deeper about the organization, to learn more things about the organization, how the software is working, how everything is coming up together. And even if you are facing any problem, one can just ask the mentors, can you recommend me a issue that I you think I should solve? So I think the mentors will also suggest you some of the issues. They'll assign you the issues.
Got it. Got it. Nice here. I think in GSoC there's a step in the process where you need to write or draft up a proposal, right? And then you also need to submit this proposal and see whether it gets accepted or not. So I would want to you to talk a little bit about this proposal writing for you, again, in very specific terms. What did you write in your proposal? What was the format you followed? And in general, what are some hacks, maybe, like people should keep in mind, at least how they should structure their proposal? What all pointers should they keep in mind that they should include these pointers in their proposal and not miss out?
Yeah, so for proposal writing, the first thing that I did was asking people who have gotten selected previously. So if they can share me their proposal so that I can get a better idea of how to create one. So from there, I got a basic idea that what are the things that I should write. For example, I have to explain how am I going to solve that particular project. What are the steps I'll be taking? What are the timelines that I want to follow and I'll be following. So these are the things that after reading a few proposals I got to know. And then some of the organization also releases their template of the proposal. So for example, my organization shared me a template in the format in which I should write the proposal. I was following that template. And then again, while writing proposals, the first thing is, since your proposal is gonna be long, maybe 15 pages around, so it will tend to become boring. Let's say if I'm a maintainer, I'll feel bored after reading few pages. So to make it attractive, or I should say to make it more readable, we should add more pictures, maybe flow diagrams, and explain. And we should try add tables, and we should try to explain concepts and the way we are solving the issue or the project in a more pictorial way rather than just plain and simple paragraphs. And again, while writing a timeline, we should definitely discuss with the mentors. I discussed with my mentor how the timeline should go for this particular project. And then again, finally, the main content should be how you are gonna solve this particular project. So I think these are the few pointers that anyone should follow.
So nice. I think one last question which I would want you to rather take upon is, what would be an advice for, let's say, anyone watching this video and like probably is just staring at the organization list which the GSoC archive provides, right? And just thinking that how should I go about things, how should I just let's say take a bet on a particular organization or a particular project and rather submit a proposal. So what would be couple of lines of advices for them, and what should be their next steps? So if you can just give a short answer on that, like for people who are watching this.
So the first thing would be to know about what open source really means. Go and read documents. Go and try to understand how GSoC works, how GSoC actually participates, how the organization participates. Then try to explore organization. The first step that anyone should do. Explore organization, because since there are 100 to 150 organizations, I think so, and choosing two or three organization gets very difficult. So explore organization and just raise a small peer. Then you'll realize how things are working. Then one can work on medium issues and draft your proposal.
Nice, yeah, awesome. I think that those were some pretty valuable chunks of information for anyone who is watching. Cool, yeah. Thanks, Akshat, for your valuable inputs, and I'm sure people watching this will definitely take away something from this. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, Gopi Kishan, for joining this call. Pretty excited to learn more about your journey. Specifically for GSoC and open source in general, right? How you have been doing things. So yeah, like let's start with a quick introduction. If you can just introduce yourself to the wider audience and people can get to know about you. So yeah, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello everyone. My name is Gopi Kishan. I am from Rajasthan. Currently, I am in second year, and I cracked GSoC in my first year. That's my intro.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, Gopi, I would again want to understand what did coding mean to you, right? When did you again come to know about it? When did you sort of start, and like what was the motivation behind even picking something like coding? You could have easily gone into something like, let's say, designing or some management kind of a gig. But what was it for coding for you?
Coding comes in my life during 7th or 8th class. When I see YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I was curious like how these things are working. Then I think I also want to make it, and then I search about coding, and I found that someone just sit in room and they take laptop and doing coding. So this was interesting, very interesting. Like I just want to sit in my room and just do code and just sleep. So that's why I like coding.
Nice. Pretty interesting, yeah. I think a lot of people, especially students, will relate to this. I think now with access to something like YouTube, right? A lot of people watch a lot of videos, and I'm pretty sure the motivation comes flying from anywhere, around them. Uh, cool, yeah. In general, would want to understand how did you come to know about open source, right? What was open source for you? Uh, and yeah, like basically, if you can just talk a little bit about what open source is actually, and let other people also know about this from your point of view.
I don't know about open source before joining college. When I joined PST, then I found like there is one open source where kind of some companies come and they open their code. Like anyone can just come and solve issue and push their code, and they can merge their code. So it was interesting. Like we can know about like how things are working in real life. Like before the open source, I don't know. I was just thinking like how these things are working. There are many developer, how this code go into production, and I don't know. Like then after coming into open source, I learned, oh, there was a GitHub that a guy push a code, maintainer just review and merge the PR. That's why I learned like this is awesome.
Nice, nice, pretty interesting, yeah. So like, which organization did you choose? During your GSoC journey, which organization did you choose, and what was the project about where you contributed? So if you can talk a little bit about that.
I choose three organization uh, because we can submit three proposal max. So I choose MIFO's, Palisadoes and Extended Library because they have same, they need same skills which I have in TypeScript and JavaScript. That's why I choose. And then for I raised my first PR in Palisadoes, uh, which have, I mean, I don't know about any that time. I don't know what is GitHub, how to set up, and I just go and randomly choose one issue which is about button, and it take me 3 weeks to solve. And like it's very bad. But after that I learn many things like how all things works, what is good first issue, and then I never solved a good first issue. I just go and randomly select one and then go it. I mean, okay. But from that issue, it's okay. I mean, I learn many things. Then I go and choose that issue which is valuable. Then I focused on MIFOs, which I am currently. I mean, I correct GSoC in that, and I go there and I choose meaningful issues. I solve 10 to 12 meaningful issues, and I was active on I mean Slack channel or Discord channel. This is I mean a very main thing like active on Slack or Discord community channels.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a step in the GSoC process where you have to write a proposal and submit that proposal, right? So how did you craft your proposal, right? And I think you mentioned that you selected three organizations, right? So I would want to know how did you separate out your thought process for writing, let's say, these three different proposals. What are the common things you kept in mind, and what are some tips for the people watching who can take that away for writing their own proposal for the first time? So you can just share something from your journey.
Got it. I mentioned 3 to 4 things. First, about myself. Second, my previous contribution in the organization. Third, my plan. How will I implement this or that? Fourth, why you select me? And fifth important thing, what will I will do after GSO. So these 5 things, and this all I cover in 10 pages.
Nice, yeah, pretty insightful stuff. I think a lot of students appearing, or rather applying for GSoC for the very first time would definitely find this useful, right? So yeah, cool. Thanks, Gopi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Welcome, Priyanshu, to this call. Pretty excited to have a chat with you on your journey. So, if you can just give us a little introduction about yourselves. What are you currently doing? Which year are you studying? So, yeah, just introduction for everyone.
Hello everyone, I am Priyanshu and I am a first year student in Polaris School of Technology. And yeah,
Cool, yeah. Priyanshu would like to know primarily though ki, what motivated you for coding, right? In general, when did you even come to know about what coding is, and when did you start in general? Like, was it before college or was it after college? Like after you entered college, rather. And what sort of sparkled that fire in you to get into coding?
so I love tinkering with the hardware, not directly, but with software. So that's how I love coding. And after entering my first year in my college, I started tinkering with some softwares that directly help us to tinker with the hardwares, how they behave, and
Got it. So that's quite interesting, yeah, that you got into like software for your love of hardware, right? So that's pretty interesting. Cool, yeah. Talking about your GSoC journey, right? Again, so which organization did you first, talk a little bit about which organization did you contribute to? What was the project you worked upon? And how did you even decide that this project is a good fit for you? So if you can just, cover these points and, help everyone, get to know about that and your journey in particularly identifying that project and organization for yourself.
so I work with DBpedia under a crawling project. So I love crawling on the website. So it was same with my the interest project was crawling over Wikimedia. So Wikimedia releases the dumps of Wikipedia's pages that we have. So they build a internet archive of thing. And so what my project is, I have to take the data from there, the dumps, and I have to publish on the database, the R platform. So we can utilize that data for our extraction frameworks. So that was my project. And covering over key how I choose my project, it was key my interest was in crawling and it aligns with my interest. So that's only the factor I see.
Got it. Yes. Cool. Yeah. So talk a little bit about your contribution, cycle, right? Where you're a regular contributor, and when even did you start contributing? What was that first PR you raised? Like, do you remember your first PR which you raised? So if you can just talk about little bit about your contribution cycle in general.
So the day when I choose DBpedia was of Jan 20, and I open a issue. I was just scrolling around there, contribute.md, the file every contributor goes to first, and then I see there was some broken links was there. So on 22, I mentioned all the broken links, and then I submitted the solution for that links, the PR. So 22 of the January was the first link submission, broken link submission PR was there. So that how I started in Zen itself.
Cool. Do you feel, Priyanshu, like, there's like, what should be the aggression in terms of, let's say something like, raising PRs or, or like, is there a rhythmic pattern in which you should raise PRs or contribute to a particular project? Is there something like that? What would you say about that?
For me, it's like I just go to contribute MD. It provides me all instruction that are necessary to read about that code base. And after going to that, I just figure out what important files are there. I go in a structured way, so I can just figure out what things I should follow, what kind of things I should avoid in this organization that makes some negative impact on my profile or something. So I see all the factors. I see the code base. I set up that locally. I run that. Once I feel ki now I can contribute and it's working fine and I'm hands on with it, ki okay, that's the code should be like this and the setup was provided by organization is perfectly on my setup, then I start contributing. So yeah.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, I would like to understand from you about your proposal submission journey, right? What was the structure of your proposal? What all things did you sort of made sure that you are including in your proposal? And what are some tips in general for someone who is writing their proposal for the first time? So if you can just share a little about your particular journey for your proposal which you submitted.
So I think too long proposal will become a headache for like mentors also. Ki you are writing 70-80 pages. So to be precise, come to 20 or 18 pages, something like this. So you should focus initially. First two pages should be ki your introduction about you, what you do, and what's your background. So mentor can get to know ki okay, this person is there whom I am selecting or doing something for the next GSoC. And then you can just go around your project, ki what project is this, then explain your timeline in next 3 to 4 pages. Then start with the how of the project. I think ki maximum pages, 10 to 12 pages, you should focus on the how of the project, how you would be implementing your projects, what problems you would be facing, and some code bits key. If you able to write some code key, so mentor will easily get key okay, the person is eligible to perform this project. Some flow charts, so a user journey you can define around something. So for me it was like the project flow I written. I go on the crawling part first. The phase one would be including crawling, then I would be just making sparkle ready, then it would be just publishing on the. So it was, if I have to explain, it can be explained in 3 words also.
And talk a little bit about your hardest or probably the most challenging moment, right? Probably it can be your journey before let's say getting accepted into GSOC, or even like let's say after.
Before GSoC, it was the point when I have to choose a organization. Because for me, if I choose for my interest or I should go for the organization to learn something new. So that was the challenging point. I have to decide between both of them, and then I go for my interest only. After GSoC, it comes to the completion of the project on the time, because it your mentor can allow, you can extend it, but it should not be there, because if you extend it, it would be taking others time also. So you have to just be sure you would be finishing on your timeline, so nobody get a hurdle. So that was the thing. So I tried to finish my project on time, and it happened. It completed on the time. So yeah.
Cool, yeah. I think that's pretty much it from my side. I think pretty valuable insights and a lot of takeaways, I think, for anyone who is watching this video. So thanks, Priyanshu, for your time. And yeah, hope to catch up soon.
Hi, I'm Raunak, and I'm a second year student right now. And I'm currently into Bitcoin open source. And I cracked some of Bitcoin in my first year. And I'm still contributing to Bitcoin through fellowship. So, yeah, that's my intro.
Awesome, यार awesome. यार मतलब रौनक, I would want to understand कि मतलब in general, when did you actually get pretty excited or pretty attached to technology in general, right? Like be it coding to be very specific, right? और in general technology के साथ कब आपको एक तरीके से attachment हो गई and you just loved the fact that you wanted to learn more, right? तो उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा अपनी initial journey के बारे में बताएं, राइट? कि
Uh,
आपको ये मौका मिला इसको एक्सप्लोर करने का।
well, I never wanted to do coding and all, but somehow I ended up here. So, I mean, it's good, you know. So, I was more interested in Bitcoin,
हम्म।
Bitcoin open source. That's why I chose this hobby and all. I mean, I wanted to know, how Bitcoin actually works under the chain, you know. So that's why I chose some of Bitcoin. But to be honest, I never wanted to do coding and all. But somehow I ended up here. But it's fine.
नाइस, इंटरेस्टिंग यार, इंटरेस्टिंग। यार मतलब इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताओ। मतलब आई एम पर्सनली क्यूरियस टू लर्न फ्रॉम यू एज वेल। व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज समर ऑफ बिटकॉइन? व्हाट इज दिस प्रोग्राम अबाउट? एंड इवन समवन who has zero knowledge, I'm sure you were also at some point in your life where you had zero knowledge, right? कि यार ये बिटकॉइन क्या होता है या फिर इस प्रोग्राम में क्या होता है। तो उस स्टेज से यहाँ तक का सफर कैसा रहा? एंड इन जनरल पहले आई वुड से कि एक बार थोड़ा प्रोग्राम के बारे में बताइए, और फिर एक बार लेट्स मूव कि यार व्हाट 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 इज इंक्लूडेड इन समथिंग लाइक इफ यू वांट टू क्रैक दिस प्रोग्राम, तो क्या क्या चीजें करनी पड़ती है, तो उस पूरी जर्नी के बारे में थोड़ा बात करते हैं।
So some of Bitcoin GSoC की तरीके गई है. I mean, some of Bitcoin is मतलब completely related to Bitcoin. It's completely focused on Bitcoin structure program and all. So इस पे ऐसा सीन होता है कि कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स अप्लाई करते हैं, बूट कैंप होता है 1 month का. आई मीन फर्स्ट यू अप्लाई, देन इफ यू शॉर्ट लिस्टेड देन यू विल बी सिलेक्टेड फॉर बूट कैंप फॉर अराउंड 1 month. एक्चुअली उस बूट कैंप में बिटकॉइन बेसिक्स वगैरह पढ़ाते हैं. देन वील गेट 4 assignment. तो वी वुड हैव टू कंप्लीट ऑल 4 assignments. Then we'll qualify for the third round. जिसमें प्रपोजल वगैरह लिखना होता है। सो हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का अलग अलग कॉम्पिटेंसी टेस्ट होता है, सो वीड हैव टू पास दैट कॉम्पिटेंसी टेस्ट आफ्टर दिस असाइनमेंट। सो कॉम्पिटेंसी टेस्ट कोड्स वगैरह लिख के गिटहब पे डालनी होती है, फिर उसकी लिंक प्रपोजल के साथ डालनी होती है। सो ये आई मीन इट टेक्स अराउंड 3 months फॉर द सिलेक्शन पीरियड। सो ये सारा होने के बाद यू गेट सिलेक्टेड। सो इट्स मेनली फोकस्ड ऑन बिटकॉइन एंड ऑल।
गॉट इट। यार तो किसी को अगर बिटकॉइन के बारे में आइडिया नहीं है इन जनरल, ऐसे क्रिप्टो के बारे में ज्यादा आइडिया नहीं है, तो यार मतलब व्हाट आर सम गुड रिसोर्सेज, राइट, टू इवन अपने से सेल्फ लर्निंग के लिए, कि यार किसको रेफर कर सकते हैं, किससे पढ़ाई स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं, एंड क्यों, एंड इवन इज देयर सम रीजन व्हाई इवन स्टूडेंट्स शुड कंसिडर गोइंग इन दिस पाथ गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, तो क्या है रहेगा वो सब?
फॉर बी आई एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड विथ ग्रोकिंग बिटकॉइन। ग्रोकिंग बिटकॉइन नाम का एक बुक है, फिर मैंने वहाँ से स्टार्ट किया था। बट मैंने यूट्यूब पे बहुत सारे वीडियो देखे थे, एम आई टी के बहुत सारे फ्री वीडियोज है ब्लॉकचेन के ऊपर। सो मैंने वहाँ से देखना सीखना स्टार्ट किया था।
गॉट इट। यार मतलब in general, what do you think was the important factor in you particularly cracking, let's say, summer of Bitcoin? I'm sure कि बहुत लोग apply करते होंगे, right? A lot of people around the world I apply for this program. क्या आपके लिए वर्क किया, right? What was that one thing you feel कि आपके फेवर में काम किया?
सो मैंने एक्चुअली माई फर्स्ट पी आर वॉज टू इम्प्लीमेंट ऑटो रिकनेक्ट फॉर सी के पुल। कोई भी कनेक्शन इधर आता है तो खुद से एवरी 5 seconds द कंप्यूटर विल ट्राई टू रिकनेक्ट इट सेल्फ। सो मैंने वो पीआर डाला। एक्चुअली आफ्टर दैट आई गॉट वेरी पॉजिटिव रिस्पॉन्स फ्रॉम द मेंटर। आई एम स्टिल वर्किंग विथ हिम, आई मीन थैंक्स टू हिम फॉर एवरीथिंग। हिज नेम इज कुलप्रीत सिंह, सो आई एम स्टिल वर्किंग विथ हिम। टू बी ऑनेस्ट मैं बताता हूँ, ये जो डिस्कॉर्ड कम्युनिटी थी ना, सबसे ज़्यादा एक्टिव मैं ही था, सबसे ज़्यादा पीआर्स भी मेरे ही थे, एंड सबसे ज़्यादा मैं ही मेंटर से बात कर रहा था। कोई भी नई इश्यूज होती थी मैं ही पहले पहुंचता था कि ये मुझे दे दो एंड ऑल। 3 प्रोजेक्ट्स थे, उस ऑर्स में 3 प्रोजेक्ट थे, तो मैंने तीनों के लिए मैंने बोला था मैं करूँगा, बट ही एक्चुअली सजेस्टेड मी टू डू दिस सिक्योरिटी रिलेटेड प्रोजेक्ट। आई हैड टू इम्प्लीमेंट DDoS protection for P2P. So actually, I was the most active person on the Discord channel. So I mean, that was the thing.
नाइस, गॉट इट। यार मतलब तुम्हारे पूरे जर्नी में, राइट, इवन बिफोर अप्लाइंग टू समर ऑफ बिटकॉइन और इवन आफ्टर गेटिंग एक्सेप्टेड, व्हाट वाज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज, राइट? क्या रोड ब्लॉक मिला तुमको व्हिच वाज लाइक वेरी फ्राइटनिंग फॉर यू, कि तुमको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि हाउ टू ओवरकम दिस? सो हाउ डिड यू ओवरकम दैट, एंड व्हाट वाज दैट हर्डल फॉर यू?
Yeah, my first hurdle was, P2Pool is completely, I mean, the version 2 of P2Pool is completely based on Rust, and I didn't know Rust, so I had to learn Rust on my own. So Rust वगैरह सीखना पड़ा था मुझे। GitHub वगैरह मुझे, I mean, it was too hard for me to, work on GitHub because I was in only first year that time. So वो थोड़ा मुश्किल था। एंड मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंटली, वहाँ पे मुझे एक साथ 3-4 नोट्स चलाने होते थे, राइट? जैसे मैं पीटीपुल पे काम कर रहा हूँ, मैंने सेटअप किया। सो मोस्ट ऑफ द कोड्स वर ऑन लाइनक्स बेस्ड, सो एक्चुअली माई लैपटॉप सक्स। आई मीन, ये लाइनक्स बेस्ड कोड चलाने में इसकी मतलब हो जाती है। सो मुझे बिटकॉइन डी साथ में चलाना था, देन P2P नोड मुझे चलाना था पीटूपुल का, एंड समटाइम्स अब मुझे सीपीयू माइनर भी चलाना पड़ता था, ऑब्वियसली ऑन रैक टेस्ट मोड, बट मुझे चलाना पड़ता था उसके आउटपुट्स को यूज़ करने के लिए। सो एक साथ 3 से 4 चीज़ चलाने में तो मतलब ये हो जाता था इसका। सो दैट वाज द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट टाइम फॉर मी। आई मीन, अभी भी मैं वही कर रहा हूँ, बट अब आदत सी पड़ चुकी है।
यार रौनक वुड लाइक टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कौन सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आप काम करते हो, राइट? इफ यू कैन टॉक अ लिटिल मोर अबाउट योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड एग्जैक्टली द प्रोजेक्ट यू आर वर्किंग ऑन इन दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, तो थोड़ा सा अपने काम के बारे में अगर आप बात कर सके।
So P2Pool V2 is the version 2 of old P2Pool. So P2Pool V2 runs a share chain of mining shares generated by miners. So in P2Pool we are building a block with uncle blocks. Uncle block is a concept from Ethereum. So to provide this shares, I mean the blockchain uses similar P2P protocols as using Bitcoin for propagating data across the network and all. So, so in P2 pool, we are, I mean, the version 2 actually, we are mostly focused on uncle blocks. So, to be more precise, P2 pool V2 borrows a concept from Ethereum. If a miner find a valid share block, but it doesn't make it into the main share chain, so it somehow become orphaned. So in version 2, we are trying to implement like a scenario in which it can still be included as an uncle chain. This ensures the miner is still compensated with, I mean, of their effort. I mean, obviously they are still submitting their proof of work. They're still doing their hashes in the computers and all. Then in the version 2, the second part is UTXO based payment. So it leverages the Bitcoin scripting capabilities to enable a variety of flexible and non-custodial payment mechanisms. So this means large miners can be paid directly from the coin-based transaction, while the small miners can sell their shares to the market miners and in their trustless atomic swaps. So this is what the version 2 of P2 pool is. And my work was to provide DOS DDoS uh, safety for the PT pool. And currently, right now, I'm still contributing to PT pool through fellowship, Bitseller fellowship. So, I mean, currently, I'm working on API. I'm building an API for the PT pool. I just completed half of my work for the C. I'm adapting. I also started adapting CK stats for PT pool to show all the Bitcoin. I mean, PT pool mining stats on the dashboard and all. So that's what I'm currently doing.
Cool. So I'm sure everyone watching this video must have found a lot of key insights and takeaways from the respective journeys of these students, right? Uh, so one thing I would say definitely about these particular programs, of course, let's say open source is the larger picture here. But these programs, what they happen to do is they happen to give firstly a lot of experience for you, a lot of industry experience which is at par which what you will do, let's say if you join a full-time job or an internship at the same level, right? So it gives you that exposure and that experience while being in college, right? Secondly, it adds a tag in your profile, like whether you like it or not, it definitely helps you to stand out from the crowd, right? Whether you're applying for an internship or a full-time job, definitely the HR who is looking at through the bunch of resumes they are getting, your profile would stand out, right? Because that's what a tag does, right? So this is very similar to something, let's say when a IITian applies or to a, or rather pitches to a venture capital, right, to raise their first round or to raise their second round, right? So they get a special attention, right? Because they know, like the VC knows, right? Like if a IITian is applying, that it means that even if the idea is not very good, right, it signifies that these guys are problem solvers, these guys are people who can work hard or can solve anything because they are smart, right? So that is exactly the reason why they call them, or proper rather just get ahead of the crowd and just ask them for an interview, है ना? So yeah, this is the same scenario which happens if you get a tags, something like it can be GSoC or a summer of Bitcoin, right? As we were hearing from our students today. So definitely that's something. Going forward on this channel, what we'll be doing, we'll be releasing a lot of upcoming videos, which are very directed to these particular programs, which can actually help you add these tags to your profile, right? So that your journey going forward in your career gets easy, right? If I can say it in that way. We are we are coming up with a master class, right, which is going to be very specific for open source and Google Summer of Code, to be very specific. Because of course we completely understand Google Summer of Code is something which adds some value to your profile, right? And has that brand power, of course. And we want students or fresh developers to leverage this brand, right, so that they can get ahead in their careers, right? So that's what we are here for. And please stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of valuable content on this channel. And yeah, I'm hoping to see you soon.